Hey, Bill.
Howdy.
How's the motorcycling been?
I actually got on it on Saturday just to get my head out of the house. Took a little ride up towards Gore and back. It was very nice to get out.
Yeah, I took mine out. I did a short helmetless blast up the road and back. Scare all the neighbors. Yeah, we can't wait.
Yeah, snow coming in tonight. That doesn't get us down the road.
Well, I put all my snow shovels away, so we're done.
That was the first mistake.
Yeah. Yeah, you're supposed to leave them out till July and make sure it doesn't snow again.
That's right.
Yeah. Hey, Frank. So, yeah.
Morning.
Good morning. Good. How are you? Good. Got a quorum anyway. Oh, we got more than quorum. Bramer and Leggett. Doug.
Hi, Dennis.
Well, this is boring.
Jeremy, are you ready to go?
I am ready.
But first, the song.
Is Jeremy?
That was it.
Yes. Okay, yep, we're all set here whenever you'd like to start.
Okay, I'm going to call the Occupancy Tax Committee to meeting to order, April 27, 2020. First thing I need is a motion to approve the minutes of January 30th.
So moved. Kevin?
All right, second. No, everybody speaking once. Rachel? Any comments, questions, deletions, additions? All in favor?
Aye.
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 I
Okay. Mike, you wanna give us a what for and why not?
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me all?
Yep.
Okay, good. I'm not going to give you some numbers today. I'm going to do a little something different. I looked at March of 2019 and March of 2020 and compared those 2 months, and we're up 1% in occupancy tax. However, the first 15 days of April, we're down about 40 grand, which is 82% down, which is not to be unexpected considering that most places are closed. So that's where we're at with that.
That's a lot. Anything else?
Any questions about?
I don't know. Anybody? Oh, we got one. Ryan.
What's the total on what we got so far? Are you at liberty to say, Mike?
I really don't have that figure. It's we're down quite a bit. I don't have that total. I won't have it probably for another, because we just closed the books today officially. So we won't have that probably for about another week.
And the balance right now as of the 2019 close is 2.35. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Anybody else? Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Okay. Go to our agenda. We have a request from Mike about waiving the penalties on delinquent occupancy tax remittances. You want to describe for everybody exactly what we're talking about here, Mike?
Yeah, there's two things that go on when you pay the occupancy tax late. There's a 1% per month interest charge, And then there's a one-time 5% penalty if you pay after 20 days of when it's due. I've had a considerable amount of phone calls from properties asking about this, whether or not the county is going to waive either the penalties or the interest or both. We had Mary gave us an opinion that we don't have the authority to waive the interest the way the law is set up, but we can, we meaning the county, can waive that 5% penalty. I brought it up to Dennis and to a few of the other gentlemen here, just because I'm getting quite a bit of volume of requests on this, and I felt that we at least need to discuss it. And that's why we brought it out here. What we're talking about is waiving it from the 1st of April till the end, about the middle of June. And this is a decision that the board has to make. I really don't have a stake in this because I just collect. So, but I need to know to tell people what we're doing.
I have as well. I've gotten a lot of phone calls and personal contact with a lot of the motels. I'm telling you, boy, they're really hurting. There's any number of them that have indicated that if this isn't over soon, they're done. Now there's smaller kind of places, but they're really in trouble. And some of the bigger ones are making me nervous. So I think we should do this. I think it should definitely have a deadline. So if you want to go from April 1st to whatever, hopefully by then they'll be able to start opening and generate some income. Right now they're not generating any. It's all going out.
Dennis, I have a question.
Yes.
Dennis, I mean, if they're not open, they're not collecting this, correct?
That's correct.
This is just on Oxy tax, right?
Correct.
Yes.
So, I mean, if they're not collecting it, they don't owe us. So what are you going to waive? If they do collect it, they're collecting it from the people who are staying there, correct?
Correct.
I mean, I guess I don't understand why you would waive a penalty if they're not collecting anything.
Well, some of the, they're essential services. Some of the hotels in Lake George are open. The Holiday Inn, the Fort William Henry, and they're getting people every night. Most of them are medical people, nurses and doctors. They get a lot of people that are transient, like truckers. They'll be trucking from Buffalo for someplace to Boston, and they get to Lake George and decide to spend the night and move on the next day. So there is some business, Kevin, and that's basically what we're looking at.
We're getting returns in. I'm sorry, we're getting returns in of stating that they have collected occupancy tax, but we're not getting the check.
Right. So that's where we are. I'd entertain a motion to do this, at least for the short period, as Mike pointed out.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I'm happy to make that motion, but I do have a question during discussion.
Okay. Is that a second, Dan? Okay. Dan seconds it. Go ahead, Rachel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Treasurer Swan, I know that you said you brought it to the committee. What I just wondered was what your recommendation is. I appreciate your immediate response over the weekend and the discussion that you've had with me about it, but I just, for purposes of our public, but also just to clarify, your position on it or what your recommendation is.
Well, my position is that it's our money that they've collected and they should pay it. However, I don't want to be heartless either. These hotel owners are in a tough bind, and I don't know, you could almost say this is like a no interest loan for short term just to try to help them pay their mortgage and pay their expenses. My gut feeling is that we should do this.
Thank you. Anybody else? Comments? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Glad?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay, Americade. We've had a request from Americade to reduce the fees on the festival area, and a request to consider doing the same for the Westbrook parking area. It's crucial to their operation. That's where everybody rendezvous for the concessions, and they need the space. So they're asking if we would consider reducing the fee that we charge them for that space. So I'll open it up to any questions or comments. Nobody. Somebody want to make a motion? Rachel?
Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to make that motion, but again, just have a comment when it gets to discussion.
Okay. Somebody want to second it? Going once?
Chairman, this is Mary. Those
Yes.
rates aren't set by the tax committee, so those would have to go through DPW or Park O&M. They actually can't come through this committee.
I appreciate that, Mary. And I know that. What I'd like to do is send it to them, at least with the board's show of consent. So when they consider it, they'll know that we've looked at it and are in favor of it. At least I hope we are.
Dennis, what was the motion on the floor, please? I'm sorry, this is Claudia.
Hey, Claudia. The motion on the floor was to reduce the fees at the festival area for Americade. We've talked about it before. And also reduce the fees on the adjoining parking area, the Westbrook parking area along the lane there.
Didn't we already do that for all the events?
We did the reducing the fees for all the events. I just want to make sure that Americade is included. And then in addition to that, they've asked us if we consider reducing the fees on the parking area. The Westbrook parking area is key to their rental of the festival area. That's where they set up their operation. So
Are we gonna do that for everybody for 2020?
Claudia, I've said this many times. Every situation is different, and we need the opportunity to discuss whatever it is that people want and decide each one individually. I don't think when you do these things, you need to assume that's blanket across the board. So no, we'll be glad to look at any of them, look at all of them. John? You're
I thought the
off,
reason that we
John.
did it,
John, you're muted.
Oh, can I have the floor for a minute?
Yes.
This is an unusual year. I think we have to do everything we humanly possibly can to try and assure a decent summer, since the spring is obviously taking a nosedive. So whatever we have to do, the revenue that this generates is, the parking areas and those little fees is very small compared to the revenues that we generate because of the bigger event. So whatever we can do to help, I think we need to do that.
Thank you, John. Could I get a second to this motion?
I'll second.
John? Okay, now we got a second. Thank you, Rachel. Claudia, do you have any more? Hello?
are you talking to me, Dennis?
Yes. Did you have something else?
I thought the reason we reduced the fees across the board on the park was because in order to be uniform for everybody. I'm happy to reduce it for Americade. I guess we'll just play it by ear, and if other people want to reduce it, we'll deal with that then.
Correct. Hopefully this will be over. We won't have too many of these. You can go back to business.
I don't
Alright.
know.
We'll
Okay,
find
I'm
out.
a yes.
Okay. I'm going to call a question. All in favor?
Wait.
Who's waiting me? Who's waiting me?
That's me, Keith.
Sounds like you're talking about case by case.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure everybody understands, we already made it 50% for the festival space. This is strictly for the parking on Westbrook, right?
Correct.
Okay. Everybody knows that. The festival space for everybody for the rest of the year is 50% off. Now you have to decide on the Westbrook parking area. So if you're gonna do this, I think the attorney will agree we have to do it for everybody for the rest of the year, anybody that parks there. That we get money from. What do you lease it out to?
Yeah, so we talked about this issue when we talked about the festival space. It's an unconstitutional gift to only do it for one entity. So what the county would have to do is we'd have to reduce those parking fees for the parking area all year. We can't do it based on who the organization is. We have to just do it across the board.
You all right with that, Rachel? You're muted, Rachel.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Based on the advice from our county attorney, I'm happy to amend my motion.
Okay.
Supervisor Stroud amends a second.
That's
Thank you.
all right with me.
Okay. We all set? Let me call a motion. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? It's carried. Anything else on the Americade? Rachel? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Whoops, sorry, Claudia. I was just going to quickly say that, Dennis, I appreciate that email that came out and the discussion over the weekend. I think it was great to have that notice and be able to talk about it well in advance of the committee meeting. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome, Rachel. I stole it from Gene. Works so well for him, I thought I'd try it. Okay, did you have something else, Claudia?
Yes, thanks. Did I miss the part where we talked about the money for Americade that they were asking for?
Yeah.
That we had the email about?
Oh.
No, we haven't talked about it.
I see Garrity waving his hand, but
Okay.
We talked
what
about
is
it.
that?
I can't believe you missed it. We haven't talked about it, have we?
No.
Okay, Dennis. I don't know.
Listen, I'm out on the road and my mobile isn't that great, so maybe I missed it.
No.
I try to keep you on a straight and narrow.
All right, go ahead, Kevin.
No, we haven't talked about it, have we, Dennis?
No.
Okay.
There were two things that the Dutcher family asked us for on their $50,000 OCTAX grant. They spent considerably more than the $50,000 on advertising and promotions. So they're ready for the money now. And unfortunately, it was labeled as an advance, which was the issue, but it's not an advance. I've talked to Christian and Bill, and talked to Christian this morning. They spent well above the 50,000. He's more than willing to give us the paperwork to at least cover the 50,000 that they've already spent. So it's not a problem.
Right,
It's not any
okay.
different. Okay.
So I guess the only question, Dennis, is if we're going to ask them to pay it back for some reason if the event doesn't happen. And I don't see why we would do that. If they already spent the money advertising and we reimburse them, I don't see why we would have to ask them for that money back. Do you?
No, I don't either, Claudia. The only way it would not come off if something came up to prevent it, if they extend the social distancing and non-mass gatherings, then obviously it's going to be a little difficult to have Americade, but they have some events they can do, but it would certainly cut down on it. So no, I don't think that's an issue either. Anybody else?
Okay, wait, one more question
Okay.
from Supervisor Hogan. What about the money? Do we have enough money to pay out everybody?
My knee-jerk reaction is yes. I mean, we've had this money. It's last year's money, so we have the money. The issues that we're really talking about is that we're going to be horribly short next year. So we have to start planning for that. And of course, one of the topics is if you have an event and you cancel it this year, we never gave them any money. So we have that money, and that we should seriously consider hanging on to it and see where we're going, see how bad the year is. Well, almost all the events, Claudia, don't ask for the money until they've had the event, and then they submit a event, because part of that application is to tell us how they did, how many people they had and where they came from, et cetera, et cetera. So I think
Mr.
it's
Chairman,
kind of a moot point. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the 50,000, he'll provide us receipts where he's used that for whatever the appropriate expenses are. But what about the block party, the 5,000 for the block party? If they don't have the block party, what's the plan there?
Gee, I don't know, it hasn't come up. What are you doing there, Christian?
So that's a very good question. It's premature for me to go into any details right now, but there is something in the works. I actually just spoke with key parties this morning. I hate to be so hesitant. I really don't want to go public with this at the moment, but there is something that we are excited about that can maintain social distancing, that serves a very similar purpose as the block party, which basically was a loss leader to attract a certain demographic of attendees and increase heads and beds because of it. And it was working. It was definitely a popular thing. And we're pretty optimistic about this. I can provide, so I can't advise the county here, but my thought is we will have a very good idea as to whether this is going to happen by the end of this week. It's coming together very quickly.
Excellent.
And so
I'm good, because we set, you're going to turn in receipts for the money you're spent, and if you're going to continue to have the event, you turn in the receipts. It should meet the criteria. It's a little bit different year, as John Strauss said, and you do bring a lot of people into the area, and I hope it goes on, for one.
We're going to find out.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. Anything else with Americade? Anybody? All right. First question, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief, but I'm just thinking about contingency planning. What if it doesn't happen? And I'm not sure I have any answers for that, but I'm going to go back to my first thought, which was, are we making a precedent here, or setting a precedent that sends the message to every other event that we fund to go out and spend the money for advertising now?
Well, that's what they all do.
You'd not be thinking about
Sasha and with the wine festival and Americade and the balloon festival, all the big events, the Elvis event, they all start year round doing letters and promotions and keeping people interested. So it's not an unusual thing, Mike.
No, I understand the need to do that. I'm just asking the question because next year, if we don't have money, then what are we going to do? Throw our whole tourism season out because we can't support it? That's all. I'm not sure I have an answer for that. But if you think
I do, Mike, we're going to have some money, and tourism's the key to it for us. There's no issue about it. So whatever money we can scrape together, we'll use as judiciously as we can in the coming year.
Next year, you're saying? Okay.
Yeah. Well, same with this year, as I just said, if we give money back for events that have canceled, we need to make sure we safeguard that money until we find out where we're going. Anybody else? Bill, you're muted.
There we go. If you permit me to just make a little comment here, the thing that really put us in the bind this year is the event is normally the beginning of June, which is to say we get our quote payday the beginning of June. But by delaying it 7 weeks, on top of all the other problems we have quite a cash flow problem. I would like to think that this same timing issue will not occur next year, and that if we have an Americade 2021, it would be first week of June, as it has been for many years.
Excellent. Looking forward to it, Bill. Okay. We got one more item on here. The Adirondack Hot Air Balloon Festival. John, you want to give us a what for and why not? You're muted, buddy.
All right. How's that?
That's more better.
Yes. Well, one event that I think is going to fly, and I meant that in more than one way, is the Balloon Festival in September. Maybe, the society will still be wearing masks and so forth, and wearing gloves and doing PPEs and so forth. But I think that's an event that's open. It's using the whole airport. I think that we can do the social distancing. I think it will happen. Now, this whole event is run by a committee of volunteers. Volunteerism. No one makes any profit. No one makes any money as far as the committee goes. The money that you take from the Balloon Festival will hurt the quality of the Balloon Festival. They have to pay for gas. They have to pay for these, very intricate balloons, the type of balloons that attract kids and older kids too. And if you take $5,000 from them, as was proposed this year, that's taking $5,000 out of the quality of that balloon festival. I'm just asking that we return to the original funding, which I believe was $35,000, and the town of Queensbury contributes $15,000. It's a $50,000 event. And like I said, I just wish to return the $5,000 that was taken from the Balloon Festival, because it will hurt the quality of the Balloon Festival.
It is 35, John, from the county, isn't it?
Well, it was $5,000 less than last year. Was approved by the committee and divvied out.
Okay.
Balloon Festival people got a hold of me, and I'm on that committee, and they asked me if we could return the funding to what it was originally.
I
So
think
you want to make it 40?
Yeah, was
I
it
think
40?
that's what the request was, Kevin. We cut them back to 35.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, all right.
Right, okay.
So if we could return that to 40, there's no reason to cut them back, because there's nobody making any money on this. The events cost what they cost. The advertising costs what the costs are. The fuel, the balloons, all the promotional events, they cost what they are. If you cut $5,000 out of the budget, you're cutting $5,000 out of something that hurts the quality of the event.
Can I have a question, Dennis?
Go ahead, Kev.
Didn't we have a couple events canceled already?
Yeah.
So we could take 5 from one of those events that canceled and put it towards Balloon Fest? Is that not?
Yes. Is that your motion?
I'll make that a motion. 5,000 from one of the events that canceled out.
Okay.
I will second that. Claudia seconds.
Okay.
Oh, there she is. Don't wreck.
Ryan, you had a question? Or do you want to vote?
No, I don't want to vote. Thank you. I'm looking at the list of events that we fund under the county funding. Which one of them canceled? I'm not aware of any of them canceling.
Well, the wine festival's not going on. I know that. I think she's hoping to do it later in the fall.
Yeah, I only know of postponements. I don't know of any cancellation.
Okay.
Oh, I thought we had some that canceled.
Well, maybe some of the town events have. It doesn't mean we haven't. I'm just not aware of them.
Well, I
So,
thought the mayor, P.T. Barnum, had a couple of events that backed out. No, no
I
county.
might have. I contacted him. I couldn't get him to join the meeting today.
I read that the tow truck canceled.
That was it. Thank you very much. The tow truck canceled.
The Elvis canceled.
Esther and Elvis canceled, both of them.
Those are county events.
Or the county events.
Did they get county money in either one of them? Well, I tell you, here's the deal then. If they canceled, they must have gotten their money from the town. We'll fill it in.
Well, the basketball tournament canceled,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
and that's that canceled for this year. That was 25,000.
Okay,
That didn't happen. So that definitely there's some money that we're not going to, I mean, we should spend it next year for them, but this year there's some money there.
Okay.
okay.
I'm going to assume we have 5,000 someplace. So we got a motion.
I made the motion.
Yeah, Kevin made the motion. Any further comments? I'll call the motion to order. All in favor?
Mr. Chairman,
Aye.
Chairman,
Wild.
I tried to get in the weather. Can I get a second?
We have a second. I don't remember who it was.
Claudia.
Claudia did.
Claudia, that's who it was. Yeah, it was Claudia.
I was hoping to make a comment before the vote. It was just a question for Supervisor Stroh, if you don't mind.
No, I don't, Michael. I'm sorry. I didn't see you. Go
Oh,
on.
that's okay. It's Zoom. Hey, John, when do they need to spend the money? And the only reason I'm asking that is because there's so much uncertainty in terms of our opening and what it's going to be like and what the public is going to feel like in terms of social distancing. So can we put a pause on the expenditure until, I don't know, August, September?
No, you know, Mike, most of the organizing of this, we started organizing for this in January.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you make promises to people about, how much you're going to allocate. You need to attract certain balloons, and you have to pay them up front. Most of your financial obligations are up front. And I wouldn't want to delay that or put any, things on that might hinder the quality of the event.
So just for clarity, we send checks out now then. We're sending out checks to balloonists to get their balloons here?
We are.
Well,
No, the committee is. John's committee.
I'm not sure when the checks are being sent out. We've made commitments. So that means, I don't want to see that the money might be in the bank. I'd like to know that the money is obligated so that when we make these commitments, we can make them with financial confidence.
I totally agree, but who knows what the future is going to hold. So I'm just asking if we can delay some of the payments and in terms of your commitments, could have some kind of wording in there that gives us an out if a second wave occurs.
Well, listen, if the event doesn't occur, I don't think that we'll be obligating ourselves to the rest of the financial thinkings, and we will return that to the county. But I don't want to put that stranglehold on them at this point in time.
Okay, I'm perfectly fine with that. Thank you, John.
Where are you, Andrea? That's the sun shining.
That's the glare off the snow.
Good
We got about 8 inches.
Did you really? Wow. Too bad they
Yeah.
don't.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I just wanted some clarity here. You said earlier in the meeting that all of the money for all of the 2020 allocations is in the bank, so to speak. Is that correct?
Correct. That's correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure that later events for 2020 will be able to be as fully funded as earlier events.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome, Andrea. Thank you. Where are we?
Vote.
Oh, we got a vote.
Oh,
We got a motion and a second.
We did vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Privilege of the floor. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Actually, Dennis, we did
Yes.
have one question from a member of the public, which I'm not sure if it's for supervisors or the Dutchers, if they're still on, but a viewer named Linda Famosi asked, is there a concern and or precautions in place for families coming to Lake George with the motorcycles?
I don't understand the question.
I'm just passing on as it was sent to me. Is there a concern and or precautions in place for families coming to Lake George with the motorcycles?
Oh, I mean, because it's later.
I'm gonna feel that.
Yeah, I couldn't feel it. I don't know what you're talking about. Go ahead.
They will have to follow the same guidelines as everybody else.
Well, I think what they're talking about, Dennis, is because it's later in July, there'll be more families there than in June, early June, because school's not out in June. I'm thinking that, I'm not current at it.
Well, they're expecting between 40 and 60% attendance from what they normally do. So it's going to be significantly less to start with. There is an issue with availability of accommodations.
I think they're probably talking more from a safety aspect of all the motorcycles being in town, and I'm sure they'll address that. I'm sure the Dutchers have a plan to address that.
You cut down the numbers, you increase the safety, but yeah, I don't see a problem with it. We get a lot of support from the sheriff's department. All the events and the tours are always chaperoned.
Christian, if I could comment, Christian had quite a number of things detailed in his press release about the extra things we're doing for public safety in terms of spacing and hand sanitizing and so forth. But I also wanted to mention that I don't recall that you guys did a vote regarding the Americaid grant. I heard a lot of discussion, but I don't recall hearing a vote.
So does that answer your question about the safety?
Well, she did actually just follow up, and the question she clarified is the concern appears to be having the motorcycles around when it's also a big family time of year in Lake George.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a concern, Don, but we'll take all the precautions we can and to try to get through this for this year. Christian, you want to respond?
Only to the degree that there's plenty of history that the Americaid crowd is considered by the hoteliers in the community to be one of the best crowds that come in throughout the year. So I don't see an additional safety risk, only to the degree that maybe the traffic has increased, but that's part and parcel of, a big tourism weekend. And, I'm speculating here, forgive my speculation, but if the tourism season is off and Americaid is off, you overlay the two on top of each other. I'm not sure it equates to anything more than a big summer week for the region. So if it's purely a question about, sort of pedestrian safety walking down the road, I don't envision. In fact, I just had a conversation this morning with most of the region's police, and everybody was on the same page, thinking that it would be not a perfectly manageable situation.
Great. Thanks, Christian. Anything else, Don?
No, sir. That was the only public comment question we had.
Okay.
Dennis, was a vote taken on the Americaid grant?
I don't think we did.
Uh,
Did we, Gene? Did we vote to allow them to spend the money? Yeah.
No, we voted on
Westbrook.
Yeah, we voted on Westbrook, and we voted on we talked about the discussions we had with the two issues you had, and it doesn't require a vote, Bill. It's a moot point.
Okay, thanks.
They asked about you spending the money, and you've already spent it.
Okay.
So now you're just going to turn in a voucher.
Okay, many thanks.
You're welcome, Bill. Okay, anybody got anything else? I'll entertain a motion.
Hey, Dennis.
Yep.
Dennis, Frank Dietrich did just send in a comment saying, "Thank you for continuing to consider the needs of the tourism economy, including your collective caution in how occupancy tax is being used this year. Every little bit is helping a large number of businesses in our community. I believe that Mr. Dutcher is correct in that Americade funding/refunding discussion was not proposed and approved."
Thank you.
I think, Dennis, to clarify, I think the only thing we'd have to vote on is if they spend the money is if the event doesn't happen.
We need to vote on, right now, all the occupancy contracts say that if the event doesn't happen regardless of the cause, that the money needs to be paid back to the county. That is not what you want the contract to say, then you need a vote on that particular piece.
Mary, I couldn't hear all of what you said.
I was just saying that if you don't want Americade to have to pay the money back to the county if the event doesn't take place, then you do need a vote on that particular piece.
Really?
Yes, because currently the events need to pay the money back if they don't take place.
Even though they spent it? So they have some event and there's some situation comes up, they can't hold it, you're going to expect them to give the money back?
That's the current practice. I did not put that into existence.
Okay. Well, somebody want to make that motion, Rachel?
May I ask a question prior to a motion being made, please?
Sure.
I guess for a point of clarification and just historically, it was my understanding, and again, Dennis, thanks so much for allowing me to sit on the committee this term, in looking at those detailed applications, that some do ask specifically for funds and detail out how they plan on spending it versus some that ask for a specific amount and it goes towards like the overall, kind of like the Winter Carnival, overall cost of the event. So Mary, to your point, does it matter based on how they ask for the funds? I mean, some, I can see that being a point that, you know, may make a difference whether something is refunded or not. For instance, Americade using it for advertising, of course, that money has been spent. And then that way you aren't looking for it to be back, but something that perhaps hasn't been spent down the road. And that's what we gave them money for. I could understand how that wouldn't be advanced. Does that make sense, Dennis, what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah, and the point is they've spent that much money and more.
I know, but I
Rachel?
mean, generally, I think Mary's talking as a whole, what the process is, right, Mary? Or am I wrong? You're being very specific about Americade?
No, that is the case for every event that we fund.
So what do you want us to do?
We just need a resolution that authorizes them to spend the money, not hold the event, and keep the money. So if they don't have the event, they can still keep the money, so long as they spend that money preparing for the event.
John?
I'll make the motion that we obligate ourselves to the allocated amount, $50,000 to Americade, because the organizers have gone through the expenditures for the event, and it's not, if the event doesn't happen, it's not their fault.
Somebody want to second that? Dan? Okay. Any further discussion? Rachel?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to be clear then, we're voting just specifically on this instance with Americade. If other situations occur, they'll come back to the committee and we'll have that discussion.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
In a normal year, Rachel, without all that's going on now, if we gave the money to them and for some reason they canceled, then you might have some shot at demanding it back. But this year is totally different.
I don't disagree. I just want to be clear that this isn't
Right.
a blanket rule. I appreciate the opportunity to continue to come back and look at this, but you know, even just looking at some of those comments, I think Gina brings up a good point that perhaps in the future we really do want to look at insurance, you know, talking about insurances for events and seeing whether or not different events have that kind of like a payer of last resort insurance policy, but just for future dialogue.
Okay, thank you. Question 2, Mike.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just follow up on Supervisor Seaver's comment about insurance. Does Americade have event cancellation insurance? Or any of these other events?
Christian?
We do not. We've looked into it a number of times, and man is the devil in the details with event insurance. When you get into event insurance, the level of detail that you have to provide, unless you're paying an absolute outrageous amount to cover all circumstances, you get into the minutia of, okay, specifically how much rain, how strong was the wind, between what hours, and they want it to the minute, does this insurance cover? And they want as narrow a window as possible. So we've looked into it, over at least 10 years, maybe 15 years, every so often, every few years we look at it and conclude it's just not worth it. You end up paying it through the nose to be able to cover such a broad window as Americade's week.
Thank you, Christian. Anybody else?
Used to buy rain insurance.
Dan?
Yeah, I think what we're talking about here is, you'd want them to have insurance to cover our expenditures. In other words, what we allocated to them. But isn't it feasible to say that if we gave these events money and the event didn't take place, maybe through no fault of their own, and they presented documentation that they had spent that money on advertising, safety, whatever, that we'd be justified, or they'd be justified in keeping that money?
Correct. I'm with you. Anybody else? Yeah, Rachel?
Thanks, Dennis. To that point, I mean, if we're gonna, I wanted to make sure I understood Supervisor Strau's motion, and it sounds like I do. It's as it related specifically to Americade. But is there any reason that couldn't be amended, or we could look at an additional motion that would apply it across the board? I mean, it seems to me if that's something that's being spent, it is something we could certainly look at. Events came to us and said how they want to be spending that money, so we have it documented.
Correct. Mary, do you have anything to that?
I mean, I think that's a policy choice. If you want to allow every event to do that going forward, that's, I think, a decision of the board. It's certainly not illegal.
Should be for this year, though.
John?
Yeah, that's your.
Yes, I think each event has to look at its own particular history, what the event is, how much the expenditures are required ahead of time, and so forth. And so I don't think that we can give this a blanket appeal. Well, certainly I'm open to anybody in the future having what they think is similar circumstances coming to this occupation tax committee. I'm fine, I will consider that, but I don't think I want to give a blanket appeal. I think for Americade, the reasoning is solid, and I just don't know if that reasoning would apply to others as well. So I would like my motion to stay to Americade for now.
Okay, the motion stands. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Dennis,
Motion's
can you hear me?
carried. Yes.
This is Lisa, and I've been having a little problem with my Zoom this morning. The way the contract currently reads is we can only give 50% up front. So I believe Mary will have to amend that contract in order to pay them the full amount.
I don't know if you heard any of the meeting, Lisa. The point was the Americade organization's already spent far and above 50,000 on promotions and advertising.
I do understand that, but the way the contract reads, we can only pay 50% up front. So Mary would need to amend that contract in order for us to pay the 50,000 out right now.
Yes, I know that, and we actually haven't even done the contract for Americade, so we would just do a whole new contract in the first instance here.
Okay, very good. And regarding the what events have been canceled, the IREVA championships were canceled. That was $5,000. So there's your $5,000 for the Balloon Festival, and also, of course, the basketball. Those are the only two that I'm aware of that have been canceled to date.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate it. Okay, anybody else? Anything else?
Dennis,
Rachel?
Mr. Chairman, just for the record, could I please have Amanda I didn't hear, I thought I heard an opposed. I think it's important that we put on the record who voted, who didn't, who abstained.
I don't have an opposed or abstain. It looked to me as if everything was unanimous.
Okay, I guess
Is there anyone who intended to oppose the last motion? Nope, the record shows there was no opposition.
I'm hearing
Great.
things.
Thank you, Amanda. We'll try this one
Motion
more
to
time.
adjourn. Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
John, second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody. Worked out great. I love it.